Hello and welcome to our latest video. On this beautiful day, in this beautiful location, you might have noticed we're at Caffeine Machine, who've very kindly given us a little corner of their garden in order to film this. Welcome to our latest video. My name is John Marcar, this is a Triumph Bonneville Bobber, and you're watching Driven on YouTube. Now, I'm going to flip things around, going to go against the usual with this particular bike review, because I usually end the videos going through all the vital statistics, things like prices, weight, options, that sort of stuff, but I'm going to do that at the beginning instead. After all, that's probably the stuff you're going to want to know. Now, I hope you will forgive me, there is an awful lot to remember, so I have written everything down with some notes on my phone. So I guess the big one to start with is the price. There are a few different price options that you can get the Bobber in, and it all is relatable to the colour of the tank. The bike itself, entry-level prices are $12,995. That is the on-the-road price at the lowest. Alternatively, if you want this particular colour scheme, which is called Ironstone Grey, this one will bump it up to $13,345. However, if you're not somebody that wants to go out and hand over a massive pile of cash for one of these, you can of course do it on the monthlies. And to save you some effort, I've worked out some of those as well. I've done it in a fairly simple format, 24 months, 2 years. We're going for a £3,000 deposit. If you're looking at a 10.9% APR, £158.94 for one of these, with the final optional payment of £8,577. If you're looking at hire purchase, which of course is the one where the bike is essentially yours at the end, those monthlies, as you would expect, are slightly higher, but at the same APR, 10.9%, you're paying £478 per month for 2 years. Then after that period, it's all yours. I don't think that's too bad. Now, options. It's worth mentioning the list of potential options when speccing and configuring your bike is near endless. There are loads, and this bike has got a few. And it's worth mentioning them because some of them do come with, well, quite a hefty price tag. Let's start at the back, and these beautiful leather satchels. These come at a fairly spiky price of £205 each. Yeah, they are detachable, and it does come with a satchel strap, so you have got a very affectionate bag if you so wish, but it is worth bearing in mind. They are quite pricey, but also worth mentioning the chrome bars in which they're mounted to. They come additionally, £77 each. Elsewhere on the bike, a few other little options that have been ticked. LED lights front and back here, these come at a price. These mirrors, those come at a little price. There are some additional options, things like the side badges that you can get on the side of the engine and on the side of the clutch and gearbox mount. Those all come at a price, and I've done my best to go through the Triumph configurator to get the price for this exact bike with the exact options that this one's got. And as far as I can work out, we're looking at £14,490. Yeah. So I guess one of the things we'll also start with is that big power plant down there. It's the 1200cc liquid-cooled engine, an amazing power plant as seen on loads of different Triumphs. And fitted to this bike, you might think, well, does that make much sense? Is it maybe a bit too powerful? But once we get out onto the road, I'll explain in greater detail of exactly why this thing is so good and so special. Power-wise, we're looking at 76 horsepower. Not going to break any world records with that sort of power. However, it is very torquey, 106 newton-meters of torque from that engine at 4,000 RPM. In terms of weight, it is quite a heavy thing, 251 kilos as it sits here. It's going to be a bit more once you've got a full tank of fuel and 90 odd kilos of me sat on top. So that does certainly affect the dynamics of riding, starting, stopping, cornering, that sort of thing. But it's forgivable. All that weight is really low down, which means it's actually quite chuckable. Again, more of that once we get out onto the road. And in fact, I feel like perhaps that's probably what we should do. I'll get my gear on, we'll hop on, and we'll hit some of the local roads around Caffeine Machine, because we are so lucky. There are loads of stunning roads here. And I'll tell you more about what this thing is like to ride. Tell you what, there are few things more pleasant than Caffeine Machine on a hot and sunny day. And it's midweek. It's not even a weekend day. So let's get out on the road. The term bobber, I believe, has been used as far back as the 1920s, but it was post-war, around the 1940s, that the style of a bobber first really took off. That was people taking things like the Bonneville, chopping the back end off, chopping off rear mud guards, putting a low slung seat on, and the bobber styling was born. It wasn't until actually 2016 that Triumph as a brand decided to launch their own bike, the Bonneville Bobber. But it is fairly crucial that I mention that, because the bike that we're riding right now is essentially an updated version of that 2016 model. I believe it was around 2016 to 2020, and then from 2020 onwards it's been refreshed with some slightly better features that I'll talk you through on this model. So let's talk through characteristics of this bike. There's a lot to mention, so I'll do my best to get through it all whilst doing the slightly slower speed stuff through the town centre, and then we'll get out onto the country roads, open it up a bit more, and I'll do my best to talk you through the bike. But of course I'm then battling with noise, so yeah, nobody wants to put up with that. It is worth mentioning wind noise, and of course wind with this bike. This is a bike that's fully naked. There is no aero, there's no wind protection at all on the bobber, so that does mean that it can get a bit fatiguing, but that is not a criticism of the bike at all. That is just a compromise of its design. There is no way you can expect to have a bike that looks as good as this that also provides you with a bit of aero. So you do find that perhaps on the higher speed stuff it can get a bit tiresome. I think the sweet spot that I've found so far, 40, 50, 60 miles an hour on the bobber, is joyous. Anything beyond that does get a bit difficult. But whilst we're cruising through and battling our way through some traffic, it is also worth mentioning that the low speed stuff on this bike is also surprisingly brilliant. Now, as I mentioned in the opening, this is a 1200cc, a 1.2 litre engine and a twin cylinder, which historically would mean, if you're taking into consideration things like big V-twin Harley Davidsons or even Ducatis, you would often find that at low RPMs, lifting the clutch and just giving it a few revs, the bike wants to kind of chug away from you. It gets this big sort of lumpy pull. With the bobber though, it doesn't. And in fact, you can pretty much ride this thing on the clutch. It is a slipper clutch, which does also help. That helps with regards to the low speed stuff. It means that the clutch itself is designed to slip. You aren't going to judder the back wheels. It also means that when you get up to speed and you're firing up through the gears, you've got very little risk of spinning up the back wheel, and likewise for shifting down. If you're shifting down through the gears, want a bit of engine braking, it's the clutch that's going to slip, not the back wheel, which of course is great for stability, a bit more control, and just a generally more relaxing riding experience. Like this, I'm currently doing what, 1400 RPM, and it's quite happily just humming along in second. Then of course, when you want to really open it up and you get out onto the country roads, which we'll do shortly, it comes to life there as well. So round town, there's a big tick. This thing is just so easy. The clutch is nice and light as well. Again, historically, bikes in this style, with a big engine like this, you'd have a really, really stiff clutch. But this is on par with super bikes. It's very similar, in fact, to the Speed Twin that I just rode. Again, really light, really nimble. I feel like if you were in a lot of traffic, a lot of start-stop traffic, you wouldn't really be that fatigued pulling in and out on the clutch. It's really, really surprising. And then of course there's the practicalities of this bike in this form with the luggage bags. Yes, they are quite expensive, and I'm sure
if you look for them. There will be some companies doing some slightly cheaper aftermarket options, but look, you're spending 13, 14 grand on a bike. Are you going to want to get the cheap and cheerful version of the luggage? I don't think you are. Now we're making our way out now onto some of the country lanes. I'm not going to be able to talk as much because of the wind noise that you're going to hear in the helmet, but one of the things I want to demonstrate, and I'll do my best to do so around 40-50 mile an hour, is the fact that this bike has one glorious feature as standard. It's available on all of the models, which again adds to the rideability, the comfort, and that is this button here. It's cruise control. Now it is a fairly basic form of cruise control. It's simply on or off. There's no direct adjustability on speed, but that doesn't actually matter, and I'll show you what I mean very shortly. So it's on, it's ready to go. I'm going to knock it up into third gear. We're at 40 miles an hour, and I'll just hit the button, and that's it. We're live. The cruise control is now on. I don't need to give any throttle input at all. Now, as I said, it's an on-off system. If I want to speed up, I simply accelerate. The light will go out, indicating that cruise control is no longer active. I'm now up to the speed limit at 50. Tap it again, and on it goes. So the cruise control works in a system where if I roll onto the throttle for more power, it will turn off. Also, if I roll off by going forwards on the throttle, it will also turn off there. And then, as you would probably expect, front brake and rear brake will also deactivate the cruise control. But it will work at 30 miles an hour in the same way that it will work at 60 or 70 miles an hour. And it really is a fantastic asset. I have done a couple of longer commutes. I've been back and forward between London on this a couple of times, and admittedly I have opted for the non-motorway routes. Of course it adds half an hour, 45 minutes to the journey time, but that doesn't matter. Again, due to that lack of aero, you are just one big windbreak if you're riding along on the motorway. So 70 or 80 miles an hour is not that pleasant. But hop onto the 50 and 60 mile per hour roads, stuff like this, and it's just joyous. I'm going to take you down a road that I know fairly well, because it's got some quite nice twists and turns to demonstrate this bike's handling, which is really, really impressive. So up here I'll be able to demonstrate the chuckability of this bike. Even here, you know, just balancing it through, I can pivot my body, I can keep my body upright, and this bike will just happily balance through, because that lovely low centre of gravity means that the handling is just great. The chassis feels so nice. You know, it's nothing fancy, it's just a tubular frame and steel chassis. Nothing fancy, no big trickery, but again, it's just confidence inspiring. You can enter a bit of trail braking into the corner, power through once I know I'm at a happy medium. Second and third gear corners at 40, 50 mile an hour, just joyous. You don't need to be pressing on any faster than that. And then once you're happy and you're content, again, just whack on your cruise control. Away you go. Before I took delivery of this, I thought that perhaps the Bobber was going to be style over function, something that's very pretty to look at, something that perhaps would be an enjoyable weekend ride. But the reality is, genuinely, I can't really think of many scenarios where this would not be an enjoyable nor practical bike to ride, and that says a lot. I have used this bike for commuting. I've been to and from the office. I have utilised, and I am right now utilising, the two leather satchels at the back. They perfectly fit a laptop case in one. I even did a post office run the other day. I sold some stuff on eBay, needed to get it all to the post office. filled the 2 satchels at the back with the stuff I needed to post off. Happy days. No need to wear a rucksack, no need to wear a backpack, no need to have a box on the back. You've got actual practicality with actual styling, matched with actual performance, matched with the ease of riding this bike at low speeds around town, the delight of riding this thing at high speeds through the countryside, carving through the corners, sitting on dual carriageways with the cruise control on. It does it all. The bike genuinely does it all. What this bike does is it epitomizes the joy of motorcycling. Something that looks cool, sounds cool, rides really well, is compliant, is comfortable, is practical, and yet gives you that sense of something a bit special. It's not a cheap bike. You know, you're not going to be buying one of these unless you're very well off and thinking it's just a little occasional toy. And 15 grand for a bike with all the options is a fair amount to spend, but it feels like value for money. Genuinely does. Everything about it feels high quality. It's so well put together. Suspension components are standard, are fantastic, front and rear. Brake performance, absolutely fine. Throttle performance, then that beautiful engine, all of it is just wonderful. It feels like a really high quality bit of kit. And it's just wonderful. And here we are, back at Caffeine Machine, to conclude today's ride and today's review.
So there we go, the Bonneville Bobber. What an amazing bit of kit. Beautiful bike to look at, beautiful bike to ride. And what I haven't done for a while is the whole me and my money analogy at the end of a review. If it were me and my money, would I spend it? I definitely would. I have to say, as a bike to use as a cruiser, the occasional commuter, with the added practicality of the luggage, albeit quite expensive, there's very little I don't love about this bike. So, I guess that's the conclusion. A wonderful thing. If you were fortunate enough to have a collection of cars and bikes and you needed that casual cruiser for the weekend, I can't really think of a better way to spend your money than on one of these. So go and buy one, basically, is what I'm saying. For now though, I'll say thank you so much for watching. A huge thank you to the guys at Caffeine Machine for giving us a little corner of their garden for the day to do some filming. Don't forget, you can see everything that we do at driven.site. There you will see the back catalogue of videos, photos, and of course, the weekly podcast that goes out every single Monday morning. That is our biggest output. So if you are a podcast fan and perhaps this is the first time you've seen anything from us, don't forget to hop over to your favourite podcast app, search for the Driven Chat podcast, and there you will see every single episode, over 160 episodes there waiting for you to catch up on with a special guest from the automotive world every single week. For now, I'll say thank you for watching again. Don't forget to hit subscribe, hit the little bell notification to see the next time we upload a new video, and we'll see you in the next one.